Well, welcome to the MML Podcast, episode number 2. My name is Alex Bennett.
And I'm Robin Bennett.
And welcome to number 2 in the series here. We did our first one, and in some places it got rave reviews, and in some places it got no attention. So to all of our people on Facebook, thank you very much. We love you. To all of you on YouTube, get with the program. Okay, we should be famous by now.
We did more than 15 minutes.
That's
we should
true.
be famous. That's how it works.
Right. That's the algorithm. That's how it all works out together. So
True.
we got a nice little introduction last time to us.
Yeah, who we are.
Who we are. What do we do?
Musically.
Yeah. And so we thought about it a little bit and figuring what we wanted to talk about this time around. And we thought we would kind of hit on some similar points that were like things that get to know us a little bit better, but also maybe just a little bit more about how that helps influence like our approach to teaching, working with students. Mm-hmm. And so today the kind of the goal or the thought, what we were going to talk about was like what were the things that kind of inspired us, or what were the aha moments, the exciting moments that really made us go, this might be for me. I really enjoy this. So
yeah.
Anyways, you want me to go first again?
Or I could go first. I mean, I don't think I really have any standout music moments. I think there are moments here and there where I say, I really enjoy this. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, doing choir camp and doing choir as a grade schooler, I really liked it. Okay. I liked to sing. It didn't bother me that...
How old were you when you were doing choir camp?
Third grade.
Okay.
So 8,
yeah,
9, 10, somewhere around there.
7 or 8, I think. I don't know.
However old. I was in third grade, probably.
Okay.
But I liked doing the camps. I liked playing the music.
Was it the camaraderie, too, that made it part of it? Or was it just...
I mean, being with other weird band people definitely helped. I love my weird band people. Shout out weird band people. I don't know. I think it was maybe part of it. Mm-hmm. So I think band was one of them where I was just like, yeah, I like this. But as I keep adding instruments throughout my music timeline, there wasn't really a time when I thought, maybe you should slow down.
Sure.
That wasn't a thing. It was always, I was building up momentum. I was adding more things that I liked. I'm like, well, I like this. How about I add this to the basket? And, ooh, I like that one. Let's put that one in there. Mm-hmm. So it was really just, I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed the embodiment of the music, whether it was when you're a percussionist, especially in a classic concert band setting, oftentimes you have to play multiple instruments at once. So I liked the physicality of, I got to play this here and then I got to move over here and do that. So it wasn't just stagnant, like I'm standing there singing in a choir. Even in choir, it was, I'm moving with it and there are people next to me, so...
What about, did you do sports at all in
No, I didn't do
middle
sports.
School? Okay, so that was just never
in
even...
middle school. Okay, in middle school and grade school, I played all the sports. So I did, the volleyball and basketball and all the things that were there.
But then once you get to high school...
But then once I got to high school, it was just music. I mean, I did marching band, which was very physically demanding. I was on the drum line for the first 2 years, and then I was the drum major for the last 2 years.
But the physically demanding part wasn't the thing that was exciting about it.
No. I mean, I was okay at the physically demanding. I mean, I had a giant bass drum, and I was maybe 100 pounds soaking wet my freshman year. And then I had this big drum on me. So I don't know that the physicality wasn't really a lot of it. I think it was the combination of the two, and by the time I got to high school, I already knew a lot of people from band and from grade school choir and from, even the sports that I was in middle school. I mean, I knew a lot of the people that ended up going to the same high school.
Sure.
So I guess the camaraderie could be a portion of it. But
Okay.
by the time I was done with high school, I had gotten to the point where I'm like, oh gosh, I gotta figure out what I gotta do for a living after this. And I think I had like a breakdown moment where I like tearily said to my sister, like, I want to teach people music because if I didn't reach out and do the choir camp and do the choir and do the band, which were all outside of my grade school, I never would have gotten into it because there wasn't that much music stuff at my school. So I was like, I want to try and bring that music stuff to my school. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll be a music teacher.
Gotcha.
So that's what I ended up doing.
Okay.
What about you? That was just a lot.
Yeah, no, I can very clearly remember very specific points because I did have music growing up.
Okay.
It was very active and prominent in our house.
Yeah, same.
Think a lot about the stuff that my dad listened to, and that's a pretty good bedrock for where I got started and what got me interested in music. But I don't think music really took a grip on me until like middle of high school. So for me, it was almost like a backlog of like, holy cow, I've been missing this the whole time, right? Because I mentioned kind of in the last episode that I didn't want to really play piano, so I kind of got stuck with the thing that I didn't really want to do.
Right.
It was one of those things. It was good for me, but I don't think I really.
It didn't light your fire,
right,
a fire
exactly.
underneath of you.
Yeah, and I did choir and everything before that, and then come sophomore year of high school. So not to gloss over this point, but like my father passed away, and so I inherited his guitar collection, which was not that many guitars. It was like 2 or 3, but I inherited his guitar collection, and I decided that I wanted to learn more. It was almost like I had that bad teaching experience with him in the early days, and once he was gone, I suddenly had like a different kind of freedom. Like I almost felt like I was gonna embarrass him with my poor guitar playing.
Aww.
If that sounds, yeah, I know that sounds silly in hindsight, but that's, as a kid, that's the way it felt.
Yeah.
And suddenly I felt like I could go and try things. So it was.
I'm just curious. Did it feel like now that your dad had passed away, you're like almost filling in an empty spot?
No, I don't think it felt that way. I don't think I felt like this was a void. Like I need to have that guitar playing, that presence in my life. I think it was just suddenly like there was a little bit of a weight lifted off my shoulders. Like I thought I was so bad at this, maybe I could kind of give it another shot and not have to worry about embarrassing myself. I could do it in the dark depths of my grandparents' basement.
Sure. Oh, so it was more like there's no one like watching you do it.
Yeah.
So you didn't feel embarrassed, almost as if you're letting your dad down.
Yeah.
But
or
instead you could I can freely do it and no one's gonna
or even just
give me the eye.
Even just to be bad at it for a while. Because
that's such a big thing.
I think in the back of my mind, and again, this is such a silly thought in hindsight, but I think in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I'd be upstairs trying to practice it, and my dad would be listening, going like, "All right, when's he gonna get really good? When's he gonna catch up to where I am?" And it's like, well, my dad was like in his 50s. It's like, he should naturally be better at me than at me because I was 15 years old at the time. I was a month away from turning 16. So that's when I grabbed guitar and I could kind of do that alone in my grandparents' basement because there was the internet and suddenly the internet,
yes.
You could just pull everything.
The internet.
Yeah, I know, right? Like it's this brand new thing.
It was when we were kids.
It certainly still felt that way.
Technically, we are both older than the internet.
Yay. All right. So
got our high five out of the way.
So I that was kind of when I first started playing around with it and getting really involved. And then after a year of like secretly doing it in my basement, that was when I told, I had the courage to tell a couple people that I had been playing, and they were like, "Oh, you know what? We should put a band together."
The band.
The bands, yeah. And so then we did our first performance, and that was like I'm addicted to this.
That was another catalyst of like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Yeah. That was I'm addicted to this type of moment. There was also another moment too that was kind of right around the same time where I was really getting into the creative aspects of it. I was learning how to write and try things out. And so, maybe would have sketches or ideas or things kind of in my head or just little cool riffs. I'd be like, oh, that sounds like that could be something. Maybe I could win a Grammy with that little line. And
only if you don't graduate.
Yeah. So they're right. And so there was I think it was like a Thanksgiving that I was hanging out at my cousin's place. And this is the same cousin who ended up going to Berkeley.
Right.
And he had this basement that I was just totally like jealous of, in love with at the time. He had full drum kit down there, all this cool guitar gear. We must have played Guitar Hero down there for like 2 hours because this is right when Guitar Hero 1 and 2 were coming out, and it was awesome. But he had a program on his computer for writing songs, which, I had never even thought of, like, you could do that. And so he showed me this program, and I sat down and just wrote for like 4 hours, during Thanksgiving.
Were you writing melodies or like chord progressions?
It was like an entire song. Like it was like the riff,
lyrics,
it was the
and all
bass
of
line,
it.
the drum parts, the whole arrangement and everything. I was
Do you still have it?
I don't. No. I don't. I have a lot of stuff from that era, but I didn't. I never.
You never
saved
that
it.
First one.
No.
Oh, man, I want to
again,
hear vintage Alex.
I was still in that sheepish phase where it was.
Don't look at it.
Don't look at it.
Don't look
right?
at it. Don't listen to it.
Yeah. Don't even think about looking at it. Yeah. Little Spinal Tap there. So that was a big one for me too. It was like time disappeared. Like I remember just being obsessed with it, and somebody came down and was like, "Alex, are you gonna like come up and eat like Thanksgiving dinner?"
Why would I eat when there's music to be had?
Yeah, and I was like, "What do you mean? It's only 2:00. Oh, it's 5:30."
Oh no. That's really awesome that you just kind of got sucked into it though.
Yeah. Time disappeared for a while. It was cool though.
Yeah. So okay. So when your dad passed away, that was kind of your first catalyst.
Yeah.
And then the second one where you played with your band for the first time and were like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Is there any more, or are those kind of the two?
Those were some big ones. I mean, I can definitely think of some other big moments that definitely stand out for me, but those were a couple of the big ones. So
okay. There was a thing you said earlier that I really kind of latched onto. How you said when you're young, you gave yourself permission to be bad at it.
Yeah.
And that's such a big thing, especially when you get into a new instrument, is that you have to let yourself be okay with being bad at it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I wish I could tell myself as a younger, like starting off new. It's okay that you suck at it.
Yeah.
It's okay if it's bad, because like our son is young and he's learning how to talk right now, but he doesn't say words properly. He doesn't say apple. He says apple, So he's bad at it, but we're not mad that he's bad at talking.
Yeah.
And I kind of think of it as the same way when you get into instruments, is it's okay to fiddle with it, to work out. And I think we get so hung up on, here's the book, this is how you're supposed to do it, that we don't just give ourselves time to just sit and play with it and kind of babble on our instrument.
Yeah, I think it's a, are you okay with the context of where you are versus,
Yeah.
you know, because if you go to learn karate or something and you walk into the dojo and like after, 2 sessions, you're not very good at it. It's like, well, no, duh, because the guys who are black belts have been doing it for probably most of their lives.
Oh my gosh,
to be
yeah.
able to achieve that level of like precision,
And
success,
just all the time and effort that they're
Yeah.
pouring into it.
Yeah, so it's like, you walk in, you have your white belt, and it's like, that's okay that you're a white belt after 2 days or a week or
Everybody's
whatever.
got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I think it's almost a little bit of a shame that we don't have something like that in music. Where it's like, you can be, a white belt at guitar and then graduate to a blue belt at guitar
Right,
or a
yeah.
brown belt. I don't know the exact belt orders, I'm sorry. But like that idea that you can, or you get a stripe on your belt, right? Like
Sure.
that you can graduate, because I think
It's very ambiguous about where am I a beginner?
Sure.
Am I intermediate? Am I, and you think about how people say you have to put in 10,000 hours
Yeah.
to be a master at something.
yeah.
I wouldn't even know where to begin at putting lines for now you have achieved X level. It's not like Mario where you're like, huzzah, I beat the first world.
Yeah, Well, I guess. I mean, I guess it just depends on how much you think about it and how much
Sure.
you break it down, Because, I mean, if you go to college for music, you learned it that way. And so
Yeah.
you can very definitively draw lines
Sure.
with where things are, right? And I'm sure that if you go back to specific instruments and things about that, the hard part is that, though, different people learn different instruments for different reasons, right?
Right.
Like the beauty of music is that it's such a creative venture, right? But the downside for some people with learning is that because it's a creative venture, they're like, don't put constraints on things. When
Right.
I think some of the most creative things that have ever happened in human history have come from constraints.
Right. There's some authors who are really into that with like the way they build their magic. Some people do, there's magic and whatever, or here's magic with some rules. So then you have to be creative with how you solve the problems
Sure.
with the rules. That when you're doing music, they give you all of these rules about how to write the different parts and things. And definitely you have to be very creative to make it sound interesting while using the narrow aspect
Sure.
of the rules.
Well, to give you like an example within context of our instruments, right? So I'll use guitar and drums as a ways, right? So for drums, when you first learn how to play on the kit, you start primarily with the kick, the snare, and the hi-hat. And the
Yeah.
reason for that is because if you can make those 3 things sound really good, then all the other stuff is essentially just extra things to
icing
hit.
on the cake.
And so, you're creating a greater variety of sounds, and maybe you can create different patterns and combinations with those different things. But if you learn how to use the core 3, then it's gonna translate to everything else, right?
Get your basics down really well.
Same thing with like guitar, improv. We talked a little bit about improv last time, but it's like so much of great improv comes down to figuring out how to use a small number of things really well.
Yeah.
If I get like a very common one that I see is I'll get intermediate students who come in and they're like, yeah, I want to learn how to solo, but like not just learn other people's solos. I want to learn how to create my own solos. And it's like, how do I do that? And usually the first thing I tell them is don't just like use every scale and every pattern and every position. Limit yourself to only a small number of notes, preferably like 4 or 5. And then you figure out, how can I make those 4 or 5 stay
Sound
interesting for a while?
yeah.
And so from a guitar perspective, it's like, well, okay, maybe I can, at first you just say, I'm going to play these 4 notes, right? Let's say it's the top end of the pentatonic scale, right? Box position pentatonic scale. And they play those 4 notes and they're like, wow, okay, so yeah, I've got a couple things I can do with that. Now, how can I be more creative with it? It's like, okay, well, let's break it down into subsections. Can can you change your timing down a little bit, right? Can you create, different techniques? Do you want to slide into these notes? Do you want to bend these notes? Do you want to create pinch harmonics with these notes?
Yeah.
Do you want to do hammer-ons, pull-offs? Even within some of those things, like there's subsections of like, how do you want to bend?
It becomes more of not just what the note is, but how are you playing the note?
Right.
I remember when I was in college learning how to teach people how to improvise, because I didn't do a lot of improvising my whole music life up until college. So basically, my profs had us each take turns, and she only gave us one bar. Here's a single xylophone bar, if you will. You have 8 bars to solo on this one thing. So it's all about, you're constrained to the one note, but now you can be more creative with the rhythm, with the attack of it. Are you going to mute it? Are you going to, how far are you going to let it go? And all of those other techniques come to the forefront of, okay, so the note itself is going to be boring because it's one note, but there's so many things you can do with that one note.
Exactly.
That can make it so much more interesting. And then when you slowly expand, okay, now I'm going to give you 2 notes. And you're like, holy crap, I can do 2 notes now. But it's just becomes so freeing when you just have the one note, because that's a whole other thing that you don't even have to think about. But then you realize, man, I know so many things about how to make this one note interesting.
Yeah.
There's some really great jazz solos on like saxophone or things where they just play one note over and over again for like a couple of bars. And those are some of the most fun to watch as a student, because you're completely like, oh, I do not know how to improvise. I am terrified to improvise. But just to see professionals on a stage being recorded, playing one note over and over in all these different ways really makes you feel so much more confident to go out and even try improvising on just that one note.
One of my favorite guitar players of all time is David Gilmour, the guitar player from Pink Floyd. And he is just so inspirational because you'll learn a solo of his and it won't sound anything like you'll be looking at the sheet music or the tab and going, I'm playing all those exact notes. Why doesn't it sound anything like him? And it's because that is a guy who his one note is worth like 10 of mine. Just the level of detail and nuance that goes inside of it. And you can't, when you're trying to, especially when you're trying to operate at a high level, when you're passing into that intermediate to advanced stage, it's like there's no detail that's not worth looking at. There's no rock that's worth being left unturned. So, but I discovered a lot of that early on when I was first getting into the recording game, and I would play solos for people, and I'd have a good take, and I go, that's awesome. All right, we'll move on to the next thing. And somebody go, maybe we should just go back and listen to that real quick. Why? It felt great. Okay, let's listen back to it. Oh, I didn't hit that as well as I thought I did. Oh, I didn't hit that. And so then you start focusing on the really fine details. And I definitely can remember solos working on them back in the day where it took me 100+ takes to get it right.
Yeah.
Your fingers are just raw after that. After doing the
I
same
believe
thing.
that.
And your brain is just,
dead.
Yeah, you got to get out of the studio for a while.
Yeah, but whenever I hit something hard like that, so if you're working on a piece and you're trying to like make it better and you're just stuck there, a lot of times I'll just play something else, walk away, give my brain a break from whatever I'm working on, and just like, I gotta take a break, man. If I spend too much time on it, you almost become numb to the small things that make it good. And so usually if I'm working on a song or something and I really want it to be good, but I just can't, I'll walk away and I'll do something else for a little while and come back. Or I'll play a different song that I know I'm good at.
Yeah.
And then go back.
A little morale boost.
Right. Be like, oh, I suck, and play something. Okay, maybe I'm not that bad, and then come back and be like, okay, I can get better at this.
Yeah, it is a game of persistence and, always being willing to accept that there's something that you can work on more and more. I think something that I see commonly with newer students is that they'll find themselves stuck at a particular spot. And sometimes it's the usual suspects where they're just not practicing as much as they need to. They're they're playing once or twice a week and they're like, why am I not improving? It's like, well, you kind of need to play every day. It's better to practice 6 times for 10 minutes than 1 time for 60 minutes.
And there's something to be said about the minuscule incremental things that you're building on every single day. Like, no improvement is too small.
Right.
A sand dune is made up of how many grains of sand?
Yeah.
And you need to be adding one of those every single time you practice.
Exactly. Well, that's one of those, people will ask, why am I not improving? It's like, well, you're overlooking the things that you could be improving at, right? Like, there's something in your playing that you could change right now that would actually improve the quality of your playing, but it's not a big enough change for you, and so you won't do it. But then people get stuck. They want to learn how to juggle all 3 items at one time, and it's like, well, you can't do that. First, you have to learn to juggle with one hand and then the other, and then can you switch one item between 2 hands, and then can you do 2 items between 2 hands, and then you can do 3,
hand.
2 in one hand.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
There's stages to it, right? So even though you watch somebody juggling and it looks so simple, it's like for them to get there, they had to go through 4, 5, 6 phases to make that happen.
And to practice each one of those steps until it's excellent before you then become a beginner all over again at the next step.
Yeah.
That's the hard part, is not just knowing how many steps there are, but knowing that you have to become excellent at the first step. And then when you go to the second step, realize, crap, I'm a beginner again.
Yeah.
And then you have to put in the work to make that excellent.
Right. Yeah. But that doesn't just apply to music, though. That's like anything.
So many things.
That's anything.
All the skills. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
There you go. All right.
Like, is this a trick question?
That is not a trick question. No.
Now that we've come full circle.
Yeah. I think that's a good place for us to chop it off here today. So, episode number 2. We weren't planning on doing this one until for a while, but we had such a fun time with it, and we had such a good reception that we decided to bank this one out quickly. It's snowing today, so we're snowed in, so we might as well.
Lots of snow.
Right, so we might as well sit here and cuddle up in front of a camera and
as much as you can. I made tea, so
yeah, so we're fine.
That's cuddly, right?
There we go. Nice little product placement there. Whoa, fancy. And you can earn your mug by coming and visiting us at Milwaukee Music Lessons. Anyways, thanks so much again for joining us. My name is Alex Bennett.
And I'm Robin Bennett.
And we'll see you guys in the next video.